Hey, my people, guess what? Your girl is ready for her city tour in New Orleans. Yay! I'm ready. So guess what helps me? Dramamine, okay? The last time I went to New York City and we had a city tour, it was the worst experience ever. You just don't want to know, okay? So I get car sickness and then all the commotion, pretty much all the fumes from all the vehicles mess me up bad. Ever since then, if I don't have it with me, I'll go to the nearest drugstore and purchase that. So I always make sure it's non-drowsy, because if you're awake and you want to stay awake and not sleep during your city tour, you're non-drowsy, the Dramamine helps me a lot. And I got my water, I got my Gatorade, I'm ready. So my electrolytes, you can't just drink water, you know. You gotta drink your electrolytes. I got my phone, it's recorded. I got my Alicia, my little sister with me. And yeah, my wallet, my money, ready to go. So come with me, I'll share some pictures and videos while you're on the tour.
Now, that said, we are actually going to take a right here, now that you've gotten a half-decent view of what we got going on with the river. And by the way, when we make this turn, you'll notice a big bridge goes out over the water. That is called the Crescent City Connection. It's a beautiful bridge. It's a little bit night if you go check it out. But it connects the east side of the river, where we basically currently are, from the west side, which is right there to the left. Now, that said, when we kind of do this tour, if this Jeep in front of us ever gets out of the way, we're going to try to get ourselves back to Poitras Street, where we made our last stop. We're going to head north on Poitras, and we'll be on the edge of a different neighborhood as we do that as well. So to your right, you can kind of start to see a lot of this already. We have a neighborhood called the Central Business District. You guys are going to be very surprised to learn this, but the Central Business District is in the center of downtown, and it has a lot of businesses that they're letting in. All right, as you can see, guys, a lot of fun here during Mardi Gras with all the traffic. All right, so again, New Orleans, 150-year time period, biggest trading spot for slaves in the world. Actually, if you guys walk around in the French Quarter and come across this, at what is currently the Omni Royal Hotel on St. Louis Street. This is actually St. Louis right here, so if you're going to take a right, go the opposite way down this one way, we would get to the Omni Royal. Before that became a hotel, that was the trade block, where people got bought, sold, traded, then from New Orleans, shipped out to the rest of the southeast U.S., where they basically had to move into their slave masters, usually as farmhands on plantations. Well, turned out, by the way, the crops that those African people were producing on those plantations, the staples throughout the southeast U.S. back then, were cotton and sugarcane. Well, that stuff got shipped right back here. Where? In the warehouse district. We started the tour with that cotton and sugarcane, manufactured, processed into goods. Those goods should go to the port, up and down the river, bought, sold, traded, everywhere. So that's also how the warehouse district got its start. But to oversee all this manufacturing, processing, and shipping after the Louisiana Purchase, all those American, basically slave owners who had plantations in the southeast U.S. bought a second home to that plantation right here in New Orleans on St. Charles, where the parade is basically currently traveling, turning that into that big billionaire row that you're normally driving down right now. So that's how that billionaire's row also got its start. And again, old city back then, but especially that rich neighborhood back there, built on the backs of slaves. Now, that's the sad parts of the slavery around here, but there's one very unique thing going on here in New Orleans. It was different than the rest of the U.S. as far as slavery went during this time period. The French and Spanish, when they founded this city, and the Americans continued this when they took over, had a document in their time period they used to treat and govern their slaves with. This was called the Code de Noir, and that translates as the Black Code. The laws said things like slaves here were supposed to be fed and clothed properly, not unduly punished by their slave masters, allowed to marry each other. So it was a whole bunch of really minor things for human beings in general. But compared to the rest of the Americans back then, slaves in New Orleans, almost halfway decent law for the set of laws. And by the way, only on paper, not even really in practice. But the Code Noir, very unique for its time period. And that set of laws became very important to this neighborhood, which is now to your right. So, as we get driving along, especially though we've got the little dog right back there, we're now on the northern border of the French Quarter. This is called Rampart Street. But that means to your left, everything else is outside of downtown. So this is an area of the city called Mid-City. And believe it or not, Mid-City, middle of the city, really good at naming everything. But the immediate neighborhood in Mid-City you're looking at right now, just north of the French Quarter, is called the Treme. It's named after an old French aristocrat. But in the Treme, to your left, you'll notice a little park down here, and inside the fence for the park, on the second side of this last couple of trees, there's a little red plaque that says Congo Square. So this gray bricked over area right behind that red plaque over there to your left, named that for those original African people who got abducted from the Congo. And because of the Code Noir, on Sundays, this is every Sunday, 1800s, they were coming out of the French Quarter, and to your right, guys, there's the back of the St. Louis Cathedral, very famous Catholic church. I'll tell you that later on in the book. But they were coming out of here, and to your left, gathering right there, because of the Code Noir. It became very historic because of that. And by the way, Congo Square is in what we now call Armstrong Park, named by the most famous jazz musician, Louis Armstrong. You can see his name across the entrance. If you guys come out here in the evenings, actually not too far away from right now, about 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, they light the whole thing up. It's really the place when the light. They continued those original traditions that were happening over there. But also eventually picked up a few European musical instruments along the way. Those were pianos, trumpets, guitars, trombones, combined it all together right up here in the Treme. That is what led to jazz. So this neighborhood is also the birthplace of jazz. Vast majority of our older, better jazz musicians, and at this point you probably guessed, Louis Armstrong included, born and raised up here. Everybody kind of developing their music amongst the culture already here for so long. So the Treme, just north of the French Quarter, unbelievably cool neighborhood. And more than a few of our better chefs and artists pretty much have done the exact same thing over the last 200 years. So not necessarily the French Quarter to your right, old part of the city, but more the Treme to your left, north, responsible for the majority of what the city's best known for. Food, the art, but especially the music. So again, unbelievably cool neighborhood for a very long time. And to your left, very till end of a parade I did not know about. So we're going to avoid that and take a different route. So y'all bear with me yet again on all the traffic around here today. All right. Now, with that said about the Treme, guys, what we're going to try to do is get around whatever this crazy little parade is going on up here and head north into more Mid-City. And as we do that, again, y'all bear with me on the detours we got to take today because of what's going on. I want to take a half second and give you guys a little geography lesson. So it turns out our geography, this is going to become extremely important when we start talking about a few other things later in this tour. That does especially include the flooding that happened here during Hurricane Katrina. So, all of our geography has to do with the Mississippi River, which, for the next, hopefully, 10 seconds or so, we are still paralleling. It's to your right. We're going to head north in 1 second. But Mississippi, it flows to town. It picks up a lot of sand and soil in the water along the way. There's a half-decent chance y'all heard about this, but it's called the Muddy Mississippi. Turns out a very good reason to know that. Well, as the river flowed down here, picked up all this sand and soil in the water, went up and down with the change in the seasons. The sand and soil got deposited into the Treme, doing a little detour, we're trying to go around the parade right now. But there's a little tiny problem with this for one particular part of town, which is actually where we're trying to go to right now. That's our cemeteries. So I don't know if you guys realize what you did today, but this is a city and cemetery tour. And so we're going to pull over in a half second, spend some time talking about some dead people. It's going to be a lot of fun for you guys. If you're very morbid, if you're not very morbid, this will be a bit of a bumper. But either way, it's going to happen. And the reason we have to do that is our cemeteries are very, very strange. Oh, and by the way, guys, if you're right, a fire burned that place down, so that's not very fun, so there you have that. But cemetery is very weird. The reason for that, there's actually two really good reasons our cemetery is very strange. The first one's the most obvious one. That's the water table around here. So it turned out in all these neighborhoods, we drained out swamps where we could build things. No further. You have to dig a hole in most of this part of the city up here. You get about 2 or 3 feet in, you're digging a well. Water is right under our feet, saturates the soil all the time. You heard this phrase? It's called a high water table. But that means if you try to put a body 6 feet under into a 2 or 3 foot water table, that does not work out very well on that math. Next 2 or 3 times it rains, in fact, that body will come popping up and go floating around. So, turns out that is, generally speaking, not something you want to have happen in a cemetery. So what we do is we kept everything above ground instead of putting people 6 feet under. Now, that all said, something else would have fixed this problem insanely easily, and that would have been cremation. Pretty obviously. Well, it turned out we did not cremate everybody because New Orleans did get founded very specifically by Catholic people. The French and Spanish, the original ones here, very heavily Catholic, and they had to go into the ground for their beliefs. If you heard this phrase that's called ashes to ashes, dust to dust. They're very serious about that right there. But they basically got to New Orleans and they figured out real fast their beliefs were not going to work out around here. People were popping up, floating around on the first red settlers to your left. So, had to come on sales very different, very fast, and that is what we call our above ground tomb system. And we're going to pull over and see up here in about a half mile as we are now heading north again through the rest of Mid-City back on Esplanade Avenue, which, by the way, if you go behind us, is the eastern border of the French Village. Now, that said, that's the two reasons our cemeteries are very strange looking, and 99% of what you're going to find in all of our cemeteries, and not just the one we're going to, but we've got about 40 cemeteries in total, and they pretty much all have this, what we call above ground tombs, and they're also called family tombs. So when we get up here to these things, we're going to poke around the cemetery for a while. You'll have 10 minutes to check the place out, ask any questions you feel like, something like that, and then afterwards, be back on the bus, keep going with the tour. So we are going to stop at the cemetery. You'll have plenty of time.
Hey people, so we are still on our live tour, people. Guess where we at? Right here at the community tomb. Look at my little gear right there. All right, the St. Louis Cemetery number 3. So, you know, I did not know that they do have community tombs. Like that one right there. That means a community can put together money and they can purchase a tomb where they can bury their loved ones. So you see the large ones? That's what it means. Okay, this is the first time I've actually taken a community tour of New Orleans. I normally pass through and just go wherever I'm supposed to go. I even went to school in New Orleans, y'all. But I didn't know all these places. Guilty. Because that's how mission I am. I go on my mission, go home. Go on my mission, go home. But I had to come out. My daughter wanted to come out here. Hey, my people, guess where we at? At Café du Monde. Beignet time. So, for those of you who have not tried beignets, I'm just gonna show you how they look like. Okay. They do have fingers too. Hot chocolate, but and then I had got the beignets too. So yeah. Yay, so they're gonna be yummy. Watch out. It's the wind. The Orleans are not eat beignets, but if you're diabetic or have sugar issues, you need to talk to your doctor before you eat them. Because it's so much sugar. And also the powdered sugar on top. Yeah. But anyways, let's enjoy the beignet time.
Now, something that's more ridiculous though, to your left, this hill you're looking at is part of a drainage canal. On the other side of the canal, you can see the tops of some homes and some trees. That's a neighborhood called Lakeview. Straight up, no translation. So, it's kind of ridiculous, but to your right, Lake Vista translates to Lakeview. To your left, Lakeview, totally different neighborhoods, spelled same Lakeview. So, again, we're really good at naming stuff around here. Now, with that said though, what these two neighborhoods have views of, we're coming up to Lake Pontchartrain. If you haven't seen the big lake that's north of the town, first thing you'll notice, it's very big looking. It's about 600 square miles in total. Means it ends up kind of looking like the ocean. So there you guys have it. That is not the ocean. That is a lake. Lake Pontchartrain, protecting the city of New Orleans, particularly the neighborhood of Lakeview. So very important levee for this neighborhood over here, because this flooding that's on the lakefront constantly. We're talking 2 or 3 times a year on average. Everything out here is underwater. Now, of course, despite that flooding, before I tell you a little bit more about this levee system over here, to your right, you'll notice we got a lot of stuff unprotected by the levee system. Great seafood restaurants, Landry's, Blue Crab, Felix's. A lot of young people, especially fresh out of high school or college, trying to find their first job. If they weren't really planted wherever they were living, they could move here, find literally any job that they wanted, buy an insanely cheap piece of property in a place like Mid-City or Lakeview to put a home on, and eat a lot of good food, listen to a lot of good music coming into town as well. All these new people started to move here, take advantage of these circumstances. So that's who did the other half of the rebuilding. But one last thing to bum me out with for Katrina, this is not the case for the whole city. So if we were to have stayed on the highway back there and continued past downtown into the New Orleans east, like we're going to Mississippi, that whole 20-mile stretch over in that direction, again, huge landmass, a lot of that area still hasn't been rebuilt the same way everything else has been. Now the reason for that is the vast majority of the people who lived east originally were the poor, more low-income families in town. So this is where everybody lived who usually could not afford flood insurance in the first place. So when they evacuated, they had to immediately settle down, find jobs, and restart their lives wherever they had evacuated to. They couldn't afford to wait the time it took for the levees to be rebuilt, water drained out, jobs to come back, and that's on top of money they needed to rebuild a home to even live in. So, scattering, more or less having to live paycheck to paycheck wherever they'd evacuated to. Now, a while after that was going on, this is about by 2012 or so about 7-8 years after the hurricane, city government came into all of our neighborhoods and started to reclaim any abandoned property. So with these circumstances, tons of homes and buildings, they all still had mold, damage, wildlife taken places over, weeds past the roofs. So city government finally came in, started to reclaim property, tear down the structures, get rid of the blight as best they could, left everything empty and open. Every now and again afterwards, trying to sell this land they'd reclaimed at auction so they could get a little bit of their own money back for having to tear things down and help people move back in if they wanted to. And if any reclaimed property came up in Lakeview or Mid-City over here, got bought up within seconds of all the new people moving to town after the recession. But to the east, because nobody was doing any initial rebuilding with any flood insurance, nobody was taking the city up on starting the rebuilding out there. Now, that set of circumstances that was happening about a decade ago. It was 2012, 13, 14, when the city was reclaiming property and tearing all this stuff down. So today, a decade later, if you go out in that direction right now, you're finally going to find some pockets of rebuilding. Brand new, beautiful neighborhoods. Everything else is kind of filling back up. As you've seen around here, very few vacant lots in Lakeview and Mid-City, the northern and middle parts of town. And again, downtown, uptown, most of that area didn't even flood in the first place. So people finally heading out to the east as everything else is getting back to normal. But between those pockets of rebuilding, if you go out there right now, you're still going to find streets that go nowhere. Just empty, grassy fields where neighborhoods used to be. And then a few random bigger structures. The city government didn't have the money to tear down in the first place. More than a couple abandoned strip malls, a couple abandoned office buildings, and then I got two really crazy things I'd love to tell you guys about. First one, 15 miles out, but it's right off I-10. You can see from the highways, you know, it's a little bit of a ways. An entire abandoned Six Flags amusement park. There are roller coasters out there. No one has touched for 18 years except for urban explorers and people stealing things out of the place. And the other thing, y'all can see in the French Quarter, basically if you want to, if you're hanging around the city, if you go to the riverfront, around where Jackson Square is, which was by that cathedral I pointed out to you. You saw the top of that spire? That's called Jackson Square on the other side of that cathedral. Named after, by the way, Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson saved the city in the Battle of New Orleans, 1815. And so that actually kept us from becoming British. British into the 1812 war, coming up the river to take the city from the Americans. So that's why we have a statue of Andrew Jackson. He kept the British from taking the place over. So that's why. To your right, down that road, more of the wall levee system going off in the distance, protecting this city. So very important to Lakeview, because you'll notice as we drive into the neighborhood, elevation is going to go down a little bit. So the entire city of New Orleans, but Lakeview in particular, on average, 10 feet below sea level. Most of the northern end of the city, including City Park and Lake Vista that you saw earlier. Not as deep as we get though. Parts of mid-city are over 28 feet under sea level. That's our deepest point. Now, the levees protecting these neighborhoods. And by the way, Lakeview, this is a pretty normal upper middle class neighborhood. It's the northwestern part of town, directly next to City Park that we drove through earlier. But it's got levees surrounding it, and that's for the whole city of New Orleans. We have over 350 miles of levee that protect us on all sides, being surrounded by water. Lake Pontchartrain, Mississippi River, Gulf of Mexico. And so all the levees, this is very important, that surround the city, all 350 miles of the system, their foundations are made out of clay. That's because clay, as a soil type, is not water permeable. Keeps the water out that's on the other side of any levee, and for us, that's the lakefront up here. And that's whether they have a concrete wall through or not. When it's just a big hill, the whole thing is made out of clay. When it has a concrete wall through the middle, the foundation for that wall, what it's built inside, is also clay. But that's all the levees around town. Now, little thing about these levees, I don't know if y'all thought about this, they don't do anything for the rain that comes in over our heads. So, also turns out, neighborhoods like Lakeview have very interesting, weird drainage systems. When it rains, the water can't go into the soil. Soil is already saturated. Can't flow away because we're below sea level. So every time it rains, to keep pretty much the entire city from filling up like a bathtub, we have to actively pump all that water out. So throughout town, we have a series of what we call pumping stations, one of which you'll see up here in about 10 seconds. And these facilities take all the rain out of the drains that are on the streets around here and pump it through a big series of pipes. And the pipes lead into 3 major drainage canals, and this is one of those 3. And these canals empty all the rain from the city, and so that's the water you're looking at right here, north to your right, Lake Concentrated. So literally to keep the city from flooding, every time it rains, we're actively pumping every drop we can right up here into the lake. So sounds kind of crazy, but it turns out when you build a city below sea level, you gotta do something kind of weird for the drainage.
Hey guys, we are here. We are ready for the parade, y'all. They're getting ready. You see it over there? Everybody's ready. We're here for the parade.
What are we not about?
Guess what's going on here? So you see down here, somebody dropped $1 million, y'all. $1 million? How much is it? Down there. So you can see it. I don't know if you can see it, but $1 million on the ground. So come pick it up. I'm not touching nothing. This is New Orleans. I don't want them to trick me. Anyways, I'll show y'all the parade when they start. Yay! Let's go.
Marine Corps band, baby, super fire.
Walgreens bag in your purse. Hey y'all, we are done with the parade. We survived this city. We're about to head home. It's not easy. The parade was fun and it's at New Orleans. We'll see you next time. So it was all good. We learned so many history lessons. Yeah, with the Katrina and slavery and everything in between. So yeah, we just have to take that with us and teach the rest of the world what we learned. And
We do what we do because there's nothing like it in the world. There's nothing like